Yerevan, capital of Armenia since 1918 and home to 1/3 of the country's population. And also one of my favourite capital cities to visit. I want to give you my personal top 10 sites. So, in no particular order, here is my Yerevan top 10. Let's start with some shopping at Yerevan's famous Vernissage Market. There is no better place to buy gifts in the whole of Armenia. In fact, I'd go as far as to say the whole of the Caucasus region. It's open all week, but the Vernissage really comes to life at weekends. You'll find carpets, Armenian crafts from woodwork to embroidery, lots of Soviet memorabilia, everything really, including vintage Charles Aznavour records. Locals love it, but for tourists it really is a souvenir paradise. Cash is king here, and I have just run out completely. Next up, Yerevan's incredible Cascade. At its most basic, this was a project to link the centre with the upper part of the city. It was the vision of architect Alexander Tamanian, whose oversized statue welcomes you to the outdoor sculpture park at the foot of the Cascade. This is a treasure trove of public art, particularly if you admire the work of Fernando Botero. The Cascade project stalled when the Soviet Union fell, but in 2002 the Kafesian Family Foundation took up the baton, and you can now climb above the city on a marble staircase. Whilst inside, you'll find the Kafesian Centre for the Arts. This is what makes Yerevan absolutely unique, but you do need to be very fit though. Climb to the very top and it's just a short walk to Mother Armenia. She has defended the city with her sword since 1967. Before that, it was Stalin who occupied the plinth. A Soviet writer of the time wrote, "Stalin's gaze rests upon the splendour of the Armenian socialist capital, upon its new handsome buildings, its wide green avenues, and upon the central square in the opposite end of the town." That square was then called Lenin Square, but is now Republic Square. It's one of the best examples of good Soviet architecture anywhere in the world. In summer, the dancing fountains are a real treat. Whilst I've seen them before, this particular visit is in November, so alas, no fountains, and I can't include them in my top 10. Instead, at number 3, 10 minutes from the square, you'll find Yerevan's modern cathedral, dedicated to Gregory the Illuminator, or, if you prefer, Gregory the Enlightener. It was consecrated in 2001 on the 1700th anniversary of Christianity becoming the state religion. And symbolically, it also has 1,700 seats for the congregation. At number 4, from the cathedral it's a short hop to Yerevan's main market. And if you're tempted by Armenian dried fruit, then the displays here will absolutely knock you out. The market also overflows with stalls selling vegetables, fruit, meat and cheese. I guarantee you will not leave the market empty-handed. On the subject of food and drink, I must mention Armenian brandy, particularly the Ararat and Noi brands. Their factories face each other across Victory Bridge. I really want to see what's inside that fortress. In fact, the Noi factory is on the site of the old Yerevan fortress. The exterior is austere, but on a guided tour you'll find a much more bucolic interior, dotted with classic cars once gifted to the previous owners. Noi brandy has been made here since 1877. Churchill famously enjoyed it at the Yalta Conference. The museum is a little kitsch, but also informative. However, it's the trip to the vaults which forms the real highlight.
That is a
great smell. From the Brandy Vaults you can also access some of the old citadel's darkest tunnels, if you dare. From Brandy to ballet. Remember the architect Teimanian? Well, he also designed Yerevan's Opera House, which sits in the heart of the city. The Armenian Theatre of Opera and Ballet was opened in 1933. I really wanted to see inside it, so I went on the website and landed tickets for the ballet at a fraction of what you would pay in London. This will be my first ever ballet. The ballet performance tonight is an Armenian classic, Gayane by Aram Khachaturian. You may not know it, but you will have almost certainly heard the sabre dance that features in the final act. Did I enjoy my first ballet? You bet I did. Much more than I'd expected. Leaving the Opera House, I stroll with the crowds down North Avenue. This is the main pedestrian shopping and dining street linking the Opera House with Republic Square. Busy at almost all hours of the day, it's a place to see and be seen. The enthralling performance of Gayane inspired me to find out more about Aram Khachaturian, so I went to visit his house museum, which is just around the corner from the Opera House. The composer Aram Khachaturian was one of Armenia's greatest icons, enthralling audiences around the Soviet Union and also in the West. The museum in his honour is built over the private residence that he used when staying in Yerevan, and is a must if you have any interest at all in his colourful life. Now to a very different museum. Between 1915 and 1916, over 1 million Armenians living in eastern Anatolia, then part of the Ottoman Empire, were expelled from their homes and sent on death marches by Ottoman Turk forces. Very few survived the deportations. The full horror is explained at the Armenian Genocide Museum. This crime against the Armenian people should be in the history books of every nation. It sadly isn't. Now this is at number 10. The oldest church in central Yerevan is the 13th century Holy Mother of God Church. Sitting in the shadow of the much newer St Anna Church, it was only discovered by accident in 1936, when the Soviets destroyed the large basilica that had encased it for around 300 years. Now that's 10, but let's stop counting because I haven't finished yet. Here are some extras. The Art Museum sits in the same building as the National Museum. It contains a mixture of permanent and temporary exhibitions, but has a particular focus on Armenian artists, both classical and contemporary. The highlight for me was seeing medieval art from Armenia's churches and monasteries blown up to enormous proportions. A quite unique experience. The metro in Yerevan is generally understated, but it is worth looking for Youth Station. It's definitely the quirkiest metro station in Yerevan. On a much grander scale, Yerevan Station is a Soviet masterpiece, albeit empty. Dating from the time when eastern Armenia fell inside the Persian Empire, don't miss the 18th century Blue Mosque. The friendly cats will show you around. So there you have it, some of my personal highlights of Yerevan, the 12th capital of Armenia, depending on how you calculate it, and almost certainly the greatest.